I step inside the breach point to kind of pie around the corner a little bit to see what is flickering. Curiosity killed the cat, and I stepped on a pressure plate in the breachway of the compound.
Welcome to Combat Story. I'm Ryan Fugit, and I served war zone tours as an Army attack helicopter pilot and CIA officer over a 15-year career. I'm fascinated by the experiences of the elite in combat. On this show, I interview some of the best to understand what combat felt like on their front lines. This is Combat Story. Today we hear the combat story of Ryan Hendrickson, a former Green Beret and Special Forces engineer who served multiple combat deployments to Afghanistan and training deployments around the world, particularly in South America, as part of 7th Special Forces Group. Before joining the Army, Ryan served in the Air Force and Navy, where he was one of the first ships on scene to support the USS Cole after it was attacked. As a Green Beret, Ryan has a remarkable story in which he survived stepping on an IED that changed his life, but was unable to keep him out of the fight. After months of reconstructive surgery, he went back to the teams and Afghanistan, where he saved multiple lives and earned the Silver Star. He's the author of Tip of the Spear and a true adventure seeker who's traveled most of the world. This is the first in a two-part interview, covering Ryan's life and combat up until stepping on that IED. In the second interview, we'll touch on his recovery and several future combat operations, including the one in which he received the Silver Star. I hope you enjoy this worldly and odd-defying combat story as much as I did. Hey Ryan, thanks for taking the time to share your story today.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me on. This is awesome. Thank you.
So first of all, I just wanted to say a huge thanks for the book. Tip of the Spear is a phenomenal read. For those who haven't seen it, goes into great insights from what you experienced in your military career, and we'll get to a lot of that. But one thing that I noticed throughout, and I'm curious, you are basically surrounded by explosives from your first time you join the Navy, in fact, with the Cole, which we'll get to, throughout your time with the Green Berets, and then even what you've done afterwards. You just seem to be a magnet to explosives. I wonder if we jump back to your childhood as a kid, were you around weapons? Did you just find yourself drawn to big explosions? What was it as a kid? Did you see some of this when you were younger?
So yeah, I mean, as a kid, growing up, my dad, it's, guns and whatnot. It's just typical American family, nothing different there. But I did have this fascination with how quickly gasoline would burn. It was really cool to me as a kid, and I've burnt myself, and to the point to where I'd have all my little GI Joes spread out everywhere, and then the bad guys that were getting hit, I'd put gas on them and light them, and they'd burn up. And I caught our porch on fire doing that one time. My dad wasn't really happy with that. I caught the backwoods on fire. He wasn't really happy with that. There was a lot of, and then when I started figuring out how to containerize things like fuel and oil, and then you have a bonfire, and once that glass breaks, it sends up a big boom with a mushroom cloud. Then, yeah. So I would say I probably had a problem from early on with things. Explosive.
I feel like that's not actually in the book, the story with the GI Joes lighting them on fire. Yeah. So I had a feeling there was something there that may have happened as a kid. You mentioned that you kind of grew up with this standard American life, but I don't feel it's all that regular. Could you just talk about where you grew up? Like, you weren't in some metropolitan city or the regular suburbs, right? I mean, you're moving around a lot. I'd like to give a little flavor of that.
Yeah, so I was actually born in Fall River Mills, California. It's Northern California, out in the logging areas. And my dad, back in the day, logging company, everything was going great until the spotted owl, and then everything just went to crap. So as far as that, so we moved around a lot trying to, I guess you could say, chasing, my dad making a living, trying to support his family. So we were in Redding, California for a while. And then finally, probably, I'd say I was probably like 8 years old. we moved to Oregon, which is what I call home. I say I'm from Oregon. So we moved to Oregon, and we moved all over Oregon again, just trying to, my dad just trying to, provide for his family and whatnot like that. It's just my dad, my sister, and I at this point. And so yeah, from from living in a shack basically with no running water, my sister and I having to go down to the river, bring buckets up, heat them up on the fire, and then use the water for whatever. And then, or we lived in a tent for about a year and stuff like that. Times are pretty hard. My dad had broken back at one point, and then just sick as a dog, and at another point. And it's just, yeah, I mean, whether people believe it or not, like life can get pretty ugly. Yeah. It's not always easy. But yeah, so we jumped all over Oregon, and my dad, he had recently found God, went to Bible college, and then was chasing different churches to be pastor. And we were at one church until it just couldn't afford to keep the doors open. Then found another church in where I called my hometown, which is Lowell, Oregon. That's where, I spent my 8th grade through and high school years. And so, yeah, I was in one place for about 4 years and straight. And so that's the longest I've ever lived anywhere besides the military. So I call Lowell my home, and I love the town to death, and it'll always be, my hometown. So.
Yeah. So I got to say, that is not a normal American life for many people, listening to this, living in a tent for a year. That's like no running water. That's crazy to hear.
Now, in our defense, it was a really nice tent. Very.
Yeah. Are we talking like a three-person tent here, or what?
Oh, no. It was like a 10-person tent.
Okay.
Yeah.
God. Still. So with all the moving around, I grew up the same way, except instead of moving around the US and not in tents, but I grew up like living in Africa in the Middle East. And then I settled in Florida for my 8th grade year through high school. So nice. Much like you, I had new friends every couple years. Can you just talk about, from your perspective, how did that shape you in any way, that time until you hit 8th grade and having to make new friends and move so often?
So the new friends part was always hard for me because we were the poor kids, hand-me-down clothes, free lunches because we're on assistance or whatever it is. And so it was always hard to make friends because it just, once you start making friends and getting close with someone, then you move again. But yeah, by the time I got to Oregon, yeah, it was definitely hard to fit in because, again, kids can be brutal. And so growing up, I definitely, I had my fair share of that and whatnot, just from, being poor or, one instance I remember we got some hand-me-down clothes, and coolest thing, and I wore this sweatshirt to school, and a kid saw it, and it was his, and he took the tag off the back, and that was his name on it. And I was like, well, shit, this is embarrassing. Yeah. So it's stuff like that, just dealing with, just being that outsider, that, the poor guys or whatnot like that. But I just buried myself in wrestling and football. Should have been schoolwork, but I didn't care about school. But buried myself in wrestling and football, and then working on the side to make money and whatnot like that. And I mean, I had a pretty good time, in high school. Once I accepted the fact that, I'm just that poor kid that's never going to fit in, really, then it got a little bit easier for me. But yeah, there were some rough goes. I mean, again, kids can be pretty brutal.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but hey, I think it made me who I am today, even though I still I could never be a teacher because I would take a bully and just beat the crap out of them and put them in a locker and lock it, and then I'd go to jail because apparently that's really wrong to do. But so I can't do that, because that is a trigger of mine. If I see bullying or something like that, I'll lose it. So,
yeah.
So I guess it did affect me, but
man.
Yeah.
You've touched on a couple things here, and I don't want to lose sight of them. You mentioned your dad a couple times. I want to spend a little bit of time on that because I think that's another relationship that many people are close with their dads, but yours in particular, you alluded to the fact that he raised you without a mother. So not only that, but like trying to make ends meet. You have a sibling, just trying to find work. But he seems to have, like, where many, I think, fathers would give up in many cases, he did not. And he also gave you some really interesting advice along the way. I just wanted to spend a second talking about that because I don't think many boys get that from their dad, the advice he gave you. And you seem to really take it to heart. So I just wanted to open it up, hear your thoughts, maybe share some of that advice and what it meant to you.
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, my dad didn't have it wasn't an easy go at all. Before he found God, he was a drunk, and he'll admit it. And he was a very, very angry, aggressive drunk. And so he never, beat us to a pulp or anything. I'm not talking about that, but as far as just, he was just a very aggressive guy, angry and whatnot like that, until he found God and started changing his life around. But as far as, life was not easy. Life was very, very, in my opinion, and I know this sounds very snowflake-ish, but I'll say it. Life was very unfair to my dad, in my opinion. And so, but life isn't fair. So it is kind of one of those things. But yeah, he had a pretty hard go, from breaking his back and being, basically bedridden for months and months and months. Just to, once the logging industry kind of fell out, just moving around job to job to job, trying to provide for his family. And people would, the whole single dad raising two kids. Well, in the state of Oregon, or in the state of California, if my dad got full custody over my sister and I, that gives you a little idea about my mom. So my dad, he multiple times, he had to put his pride away. Here's this guy in his 30s, 40s, whatever, instead of out, trying to meet women or whatnot like that, he chose to be a dad. And it was not easy, because he went from this life that he was accustomed to, making lots of money in the logging industry, to bankrupt and everything that goes, and then just injury after injury and hurt after hurt. And so, and then, obviously his transition to being a Christian, and that wasn't all roses and sunshine either. Another thing that I believe there's a misconception on religion is, well, I found God, why isn't things getting easier for me? It's because it doesn't work that way. And so we had to go through all the growing pains of that and whatnot like that. But yeah, we did. We moved around. But the one thing he always did is, regardless of what the situation looked like, we were always still taken care of. And so an outsider looking in can say, well, how is that possible? You lived in a tent or whatnot like that. Well, your standards and our standards, that little bit, if that's, to me, we were still being taken care of, because I'm here. And
he could have left, right?
And I'm somewhat, have made something of my life, which I would consider to be positive. And it is because of my dad. And I was able to look back on, and my dad is very open about his mistakes, because he does believe that you learn from your mistakes. The minute you try and leave everything in the past and just never remember it again, is when you start recreating those mistakes. Mistakes are there for a reason, regardless of how ugly they are or how ashamed of them you are. They're still mistakes. And so I was always able to look back on that. But my dad, some of the advice he gave me, before I joined the military and whatnot like that, is kind of what keeps me doing what I do today. And he told me this. This story. I was getting ready to join the military, the Navy, and I was all nervous about leaving, and haven't been away from home, never been on an airplane before, all this other stuff. And he told me the story about these two old men sitting in a rocking chair on their porch. And he said, one old man was miserable, and he hated life. Life was a prison for him. And his mind was filled with all of these, I wish I would have. I wish I would have done this. I wish I would have taken this chance. I wish I would have stepped out of my comfort zone and tried this. I lived this life of comfort and security my entire, existence, because I never wanted to be uncomfortable or try something new. And I have no memories. I've done nothing in my life except for exist. And he was ashamed and upset at himself. And because he knew that he let life pass him by. And then the second old man was sitting in his rocking chair, and he was content, and he was smiling and happy. And he had lived a full life. He had done everything there was to do, regardless if it was right or wrong, lessons learned, whatnot. He's done it all. And he was just thinking back on all these memories he had, and he didn't have any I wish I would have or what ifs, because he had answered all those when he was living, regardless of, if he fell flat on his face or if he succeeded. He still gave it a shot because it's life. And so that old man was content and happy. And basically when death came, he was comfortable with that, because he had lived the life and he had gotten everything out of the life that he was given. And so my dad, he said, you're going to be that old man one day. Which man do you want to be? And so I have, throughout the book, if you read it, just jumping all over the world, just because why not? No reason. I'll just go to the branch of the service, the jobs I've done, falling flat on my face way more times than I've succeeded, but I still tried. And, I've kind of adapted that to my own, I guess saying, and it's, there's two things in life there's two things you do not control. And this is just my beliefs again. But you don't control life and you don't control death. I believe that when you are born has been written way before you were born. And I believe when you die, that's already in the books. And I'm not going to get religious in my beliefs, but I believe that God knows your timeline before you're born. Everything in the middle is empty. Everything in the middle is blank pages. So the beginning of the book and the end of the book are already there. But what you fill that book with is up to you. And is your story going to be worth reading? And so that's kind of me adapting my dad's talk to that. So,
yeah, it's a great story. And I know your dad also talks about, write your life the way you want it to be, right? Like, don't let other people make the decisions for you.
Yeah.
You make those calls yourself, right?
Yeah. 100%, life. And I believe that this is extremely important today more than ever, because everybody is looking at something else or someone else or some idea of what life is supposed to be like. And like, okay, this reality show, that's life. That's what I'm supposed to be. That's the reason why these reality TV shows are so popular today, is because nobody has their own identity. Everybody wants to live through somebody else, and they try and adapt and mold their life to what they think is, this is what I'm supposed to be as a man, woman, or whatever. This is what I'm supposed to be, because that's what that successful person does. That's what Brad Pitt does. That's what, I don't know, Brett Favre did. And so everyone's molding their lives to what they think it's supposed to be, and they've lost their identity. And my dad was always big on, like, keep your identity, regardless of how bad the times are, or regardless of how crappy you think you've got it. remain yourself. Don't ever let anybody change you to being something that you're not, because in the end, all you have is you, your identity. This is you. Own it and make it the best you can. And so, I agree with that. Like people are very wrapped around the axle as success is millions of dollars and cars and boats and all this other stuff. And then I'll be happy. Then I'll be happy. But that's in my opinion, that's wrong, because you're measuring your value of success, again, measuring yourself up against what you've seen other people have that look happy on a TV commercial or a TV show or something like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not necessarily the correct answer. What is happy is, making your own mark in the world, and it is your mark. It's not a mark that you came up with because you're trying to strive to be something else that you're not, or somebody else. It's your own mark.
Yeah.
And regardless if it's living in a tent for a year or anything like that, it doesn't matter. It's still keep who you are. And just other lessons I've learned, along the way. And everybody struggles with it. I mean, I'd love to be Pitbull on a yacht and I mean, it'd be great, but it's just reality is, I'm a stumpy, bald-headed 42-year-old dude that the Army broke down. So it's good.
And I mean, social media is basically fueled by what you're talking about. With your old man, and this might not be fair to ask, I'm just curious, do you feel like when he was giving you that advice at that time in your life, it was how he wished he had lived? Or do you think he felt like he had lived that way himself? Or he was saying, hey, I didn't have a chance to do this. Like, I had to put a lot of that to the side for myself so I can make sure you and your sister grew up this way.
So I believe you're right on a couple aspects. And so I do believe, like, my dad's story is absolutely incredible as far as, his tours in Vietnam, traveling around the world, and doing the things that he's done. I also believe that advice came out of regret of things that he hasn't done in his life. And I believe, and so raising us two kids is one of the best, he considers it one of the best things he's ever done, because I honestly think, like, people will put tags on what they assume a hero is. Hero, he goes into, he charges right into blazing, barrel 7.62 flying all around him, kills the enemy and saves his whole squad. That's a hero. But I agree, that's a very courageous act. But a hero is also a man who raises his children successfully against all odds, and is still, that's a hero, and so he's had to, and he has regrets of some, of like, hey, I wish I would have been better at this, or I wish I would have, done this more, or whatnot, like that. Everybody's going to have that. But in the end, I mean, raising us two kids, what he did before us, and then, pretty much, I mean, yeah, I think he's lived a pretty content life, but I do believe that advice came out of lessons learned from opportunities he missed.
Yeah.
So I do believe, yeah.
And you mentioned his tours in Vietnam. I think, you mentioned he was a crew chief and / door gunner, right? In the helicopter war, basically, that was Vietnam. My old man flew Hueys, so I'm well acquainted with that lifestyle. And maybe this transitions into, was that one of the driving forces for you to join the military, was his service, or did it come from something else?
So joining the military, I think it was always going to be something that happened, just because, from little kid, playing with GI Joes and blowing things up, and all my fictitious war games with shooting cows with paintballs and stuff like that in my head, that, I mean, yeah, I just think that was the path that I was on, because of my dad and his influences and whatnot. But, I mean, when I turned 18, the talk that I got, was, hey, you can go out and get a job. You can try and go to college, but you're not really college material. It's like, yeah, no, good point. You can, do whatever you want, but I highly recommend joining the military, serve your country for 4 years, go see the world, get that out of your system, and then come back and reevaluate what you want to do. Because at 18 years old, you really have no clue what you want to do. And oh yeah, I forgot to tell you, you can't stay here anymore. And his big, and the reason for that is, I don't want you to be 42 years old at the gas station pumping gas, talking about, 1996 homecoming when you guys, I mean, that's not the life.
Yeah.
You have to leave, and I'm going to make you leave. So I highly recommend joining the military and go ahead and get those experiences. And that's what kind of drove me towards the military, not necessarily the Navy, but that's what was like, okay, yep, I'm military. I'm not going to college. I could have joined the police force or something like that, but he's like, yeah, that's serving your country, but I highly recommend joining the military. So, to see the world and everything like that. So that was kind of the drive behind all that.
Got it. And I will say, as I was reading the book, I would occasionally have to like jump back to the cover to see like this guy's in the Army in the end, right? Because you have this very circuitous route to get there. So could we just touch on, you mentioned the Navy. We got to talk about that, Cole, the Air Force. Could you kind of walk us through that? Like, how did you choose that path?
Yeah. So it was kind of comical. So the recruiters, how they come to the high school and everything like that. I remember I talked to the Air Force recruiter, and he looked at my test scores and he was like, yeah, that's real cute, man. It's not going to happen. Cause I mean, I was like, I had to retake the ASVAB. It was that bad. And then the Army, believe it or not, in the 90s, they weren't looking for anybody. And so they were like, test score, even for the Army, these test scores are a bit rough, bro. Like, yeah, I mean, we can get you infantry, but that's like 8 months from now. We just have nothing. You want infantry in about 8 months? It's like, well, no, I want to leave now. So then I remember the Marine, he came into school, and man, this guy was just like super angry dude. And he was really intimidating, and he had a big dip in, and he's like yelling and chew spits coming out. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm scared of you. I was like, I don't want to join the Marines. You guys are angry and really scary. So I was like, nope, Marines are out. And then the Navy, I actually went with my buddy to talk to a Navy recruiter. Had nothing to do with me. He just wanted emotional support or something like that. So we're sitting there, and I mean, he's all like leaned back in the chair, and I said, hey, you want to go to exotic ports and see exotic women? I was like, yeah. He's like, you want a chance to be a Navy SEAL like Charlie Sheen or fly F-14 Tomcats like Tom Cruise? Yeah. He's like, cool, man. Sign here. So my buddy is like, yeah, this is dumb. I'm not joining the Navy. And I signed. So, and I mean, the conversation probably didn't go quite like that, but that's what I remember.
Yeah.
But yeah, he just played on, he's showing me pictures of ports and women all over the world. And I'm an 18-year-old kid, and I was like, holy cow. So, I joined the Navy and went through boot camp and everything like that. And found myself in the middle of the Persian Gulf on a ship as a bosun's mate. And I'm just dying of just being on a ship in the Persian Gulf in July. And we're out there just chipping paint and putting primer down and painting it over with haze gray. And I'm just like, what is going on here? I am not a Navy SEAL F-14 Tomcat pilot at all right now. So yeah, it didn't really work out, but I had a blast in the Navy.
So it's funny how many of the guys I talked to how important that recruiter was in luring them in whatever way it was. And it sounds like that guy just had a great pitch down for the 18-year-old guy. Like,
Oh yeah.
but to your point, like you mentioned that you're painting over the same thing. Basically, you got this mundane work, but you do get to go to ports, right? You're starting to see the world, and like you've seen over time, you end up seeing several of the seven wonders of the world. So like you are a well-traveled person. It seems like it begins with the Navy, right?
Yeah. I mean, I remember my first ship was the USS Shreveport, and we were in Norfolk, Virginia, and we did a med cruise, and so we went to the Persian Gulf through the Suez Canal, and then I was on the West Coast on the USS Camden, and we did a Westpac and ended up in the Persian Gulf through the Straits of Hormuz. So I've circled the globe on a ship, which was really cool. And
that's super cool. I mean, how many people could say that?
And then all the ports we've been to, I mean, neither ship I was on was nuclear powered, so we were able to go to even more ports. And we went everywhere. And so it was definitely, I mean, it was hard. I mean, Navy as an E1 through E3, it was tough work, very tough, but it was so rewarding. I couldn't go back at my age and do it, but as an 18-year-old to 20-year-old, that was the ticket right there. So,
can you talk about the Cole experience for you?
Yeah. So my second ship, the USS Camden, we were getting through the Straits of Hormuz on our way to to the Persian Gulf. We were going to link up with, I think, the Carl Vinson battle group. We were about 8 hours from Yemen, and a call went out that a distress call went out from the Cole. The Cole had been bombed. And so we were us and the Donald Cook were the two closest ships to the Cole. So we went, full steam ahead to the Gulf of Aden. And I was a rescue swimmer at the time, so I was part of the first crew that was actually dispatched from once we got to the Gulf and anchored from the Camden to the Cole. So we went over to the Cole on small boats and just started helping with bucket brigades, because we still didn't have control of the flooding, and the underwater or the submersible pumps were out. And so we were doing bucket brigades, just trying to save the ship. There is still a big portion of it was underwater, but we had closed off those hatches, and so we were able to contain it to a couple compartments. The chow hall being one of them, which unfortunately they got hit during chow hours. And then body recovery, and so that was the first. I guess that was the first time I saw, I saw death in that aspect, as in the enemy was killing Americans, and so, you see car crash and someone dies, and it's super bad, but there's something different about, these guys did this to us in a violent way, whether it's gunshots, IEDs, or explosive laden, barges that they pull up alongside a ship. It's still, so that was the first, and that was one of the first salvos in our war against terror. That was one of the first. And I remember, CIA director came on board ship a couple days later, and we were meeting with him, and people from all over were, just different agencies were coming on board, just really trying to figure this thing out. But in the end, it was so simple. Disguised as a trash barge full of explosives, pull up, guys come out to start tossing trash on the trash barge, and boom. So,
were you physically pulling people out from that, Ryan?
So parts, that's the problem.
Jesus.
Yeah, as you were going through different decks and whatnot like that, there would be a part here, and unfortunately, as the days went on, you would find them by smell. And so, because October in Yemen is still really hot. And the Navy divers, they were the ones down below decks that were pulling the bodies or pieces of bodies, what they could get left of the bodies, out of the rubble and stuff, or out of the, just the carnage of the ship being hit, so yeah, it was something else. It opened my eyes, and we, to the fact of, okay, this is the military, and this is the aspect that, they talk about, people are trying to kill you.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that was the first one.
Yeah.
There'd be more to come.
There's more to come on that.
Yeah.
All right. So then somehow you end up jumping from the Navy to the Air Force. Like, what was the decision behind that?
So when I got out of the Navy, I tried to be a civilian and do civilian stuff. And I guess I didn't really play well with others at the time or whatnot. I don't know, but I just couldn't wrap my head around, the structure people had. It's only 15 minutes late. Like, who cares? It's 15 minutes late. It really, like, it bothered me to the point to where I was working a job and I got let go because they were like, yeah, you're just very aggressive towards the staff. And I was like, okay. Yeah, but your staff sucks. It's like, well, you can't act like that. It's, all right. So I mean, and I had differences with the leadership at the job and whatnot like that, because they in my opinion, they aided in and allowed this kind of, like, people to basically do what they wanted. And there was no real task condition standard. There was no structure. And if you broke the rules, there was nothing there was really no penalty. But then the guy that speaks up about it, is like, well, hey, you're a little too much for what we're doing here, but thank you very much. Like, okay, cool. So, and then I did odds and ends, just trying to figure out what was me. And in the end, it was just like, my wife at the time, and I both agreed. It's like, yeah, you need to go back in the military. But she came from the Army. And so she didn't want to be a part of the, the Army atmosphere anymore. That wasn't what she wanted. She was done with the Army, so she was done. And so I was like, okay, so no Army. The Marines, I was still scared of them because that guy just really scary. And so, the Air Force, we agreed upon, the Air Force, and we thought, like, oh yeah, Air Force, safe. You're not really going to be gone that much because it's the Air Force and all this other stuff. And then turned out to be completely wrong, because I was an ammo troop, which was an amazing job. I had so much fun as an ammo troop. But yeah, there was a war going on that dropped a lot of bombs on bad guys. And so, we started deploying a lot just in support of OIF and OEF and whatnot like that. So, yeah. So, no, I ended up being, it ended up being gone quite a bit, but I had a blast. It was such a good job.
So, Ryan, the way you've described the Marine, right? Like, he's scary, and the choice of the Air Force, because it's not dangerous, seems completely opposite of the person that you are when you're a Green Beret, and the way you described growing up, where you're kind of like drawn to the adventure, the danger. Mm-hmm. Was that hard for you, like loading planes and not being like, hey, I want to be where these bombs are dropping? Or did that come later for you?
No, it was hard for me, but I was trying to, I was trying to do the best that I thought at that point in time that I could do to be, a good husband or whatnot. And in the end, it was just like, it was already, it was already a failed cause, because I was still a kid, when I got married. I got out of the house and started seeing the world, but then I immediately get married as a kid, which is, I wrong answer. And so I made a lot of mistakes. And in the end, I was trying to do the right thing by going to the Air Force. And this is nothing against the Air Force. I had so much fun. And one of the greatest jobs I ever did was as an ammo troop loading planes. And, it was awesome. But yes, there was this part of me that I was like, I know that there's something more than this. I know, like I went to Buds and failed out of Buds. And that really, like, I still had this thing. Like, I know I can do something. I just don't know what it is, but I know this is not it. And so when we got divorced, I was like, all right, hey, I gotta do something dramatic here, because all I'm doing is breathing air and existing. That's it. I'm not making a mark. I'm in this complete and utter lull in my life, and I'm not filling in any pages, and I'm depressed and everything like that. Something has to change. So I went, I was going to the personnel office for some reason or another. And I saw this poster on the wall, and it had, a guy in uniform, and half of it was in Army Class A's and the other half was in the Air Force Blues. And it said, transition to the Army, go blue to green, blah, 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 blah. Check with a personnel advisor to see if your AFSC is one of the overman ones. So I did. And they were like, yeah, you're in an overman career field. You can switch to the Army if you want. And it was like 2 or maybe 3 weeks later, I was at MEPS in Birmingham, and I was sitting there, and we were all waiting for the phone call from the judge to say, okay, yeah, you're legally divorced now. So I'm just sitting there in the chair, and the MEPS guys are around. They're like, man, when's this guy going to call? Oh, here he is. And he's like, okay, it's legal. And I walked back in, and I said single on my form, and stamped it. And they were like, you're going, yeah, you're in the Army. And so I knew there was something more. And I remember when I was in Iraq as with the Air Force, there was Green Berets that were working out in the same gym that we'd go to. And I remember I was there one night, and one of the guys, I just struck up a conversation. I think it was, he asked me to spot him or something like that. I can't quite remember, but struck up a conversation, and I told him, I was like, yeah, man, I'd like to do something more. I just, I don't know what I can do. I was in the Navy, now the Air Force. And he was like, yeah, I got a buddy on another ODA. He was in the Air Force too, and transitioned over, and now he's a Green Beret. So that kind of got things ticking for me a little bit. But I never really jumped on board that. I just kind of like, hey, that's not me. I mean, yeah, I grew up in the woods and I blah, 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 but I'm not Army. I would have to, and I just started making all these excuses of why I probably couldn't. And then I came to that point in my life, just the perfect storm with the divorce, depression, and just really needing just this immediate life change, because I had a whole bunch of losses racked up. I had no wins in my column. And I was like, gosh, and I just needed, I needed to go for broke. Like, yeah, it's just, and so I did. I signed the contract, went blue to green, and, went through the transition course. And then I found myself at Fort Benning, infantry basic. And it's like, man, this could have happened back in 97.
And
so,
just before we get into your track into Special Forces, I want to make sure timeline wise, do you start doing your solo traveling prior to the Army when you're going to Southeast Asia, Vietnam?
Yeah, so I did a lot of that. I did all of the Southeast Asia stuff before the Army. Yeah. So I went to Vietnam, and Vietnam was a crazy story, because I wanted to go there and kind of like track where my dad had been at and go to a couple of fire bases that he was at. So, I went to Vietnam, but I was broke. and it was very stupid, but I didn't care because, again, I was just running from life, and I just needed to bury myself into something else and just not think. So I had like 400 some odd dollars and a plane ticket. So I flew to Vietnam, and next thing you know, I mean, I'm traveling around, and I'm going to these places that my dad had been at, and most of them were just grass fields by then. But there was still, I remember there was one base that he was stationed at that was a military base there, and I was taking pictures, and I was quickly informed of how wrong I was by Vietnamese army two troops there with AKs, and I was like, oh, okay. So they didn't like that, and they didn't understand what I was trying to tell them. So I just quickly left. But yeah, I traveled around a bit, and then I went to check out of my hotel, and there was this bill for like $500. And I was trying to figure out, I was like, I didn't spend $500. And they said it was a phone charge. It's like, what do you mean a phone charge? I didn't, how is that possible? And so I'm trying to figure this out, and I can't, and I have no money. I had a $20 bill, or no, I was broke. So I had no money to get to the airport. And the airport was still, like, I was downtown Ho Chi Minh City. The airport's on the outskirts, like an hour cab ride because of all the traffic and everything. And so I'm sitting there and I'm trying to figure out, I was like, I don't know what to do. And they're basically saying like, hey, if you don't pay, you're going to get locked up. And I don't think the show Locked Up Abroad was out, but I guarantee you I would have been episode 1.
You could have been the early incubator.
Yeah, but I'm sitting there and I'm like, well, there's nothing I can do. I have no money, and my cards are completely drained, and I didn't have a credit card. No idea why. I didn't have a credit card. And so I'm just sitting there. I was like, crap, man. And then the two soldiers come in, and they had called the police, and of course soldiers show up and all this other stuff. I'm like, you got to be kidding me, man. And so I was trying to explain my side. They didn't understand anything I was saying, and I get barrel thumped in the chest, and I was like, oh God, this is real. And so I do remember, I was like, I need to call the embassy. They understood that. So I was able to call the embassy, and the reaction I got was, well, I mean, you should have planned better, man. Because they thought I was just some hippie backpacker. Again, nothing against hippies, but I was just some hippie backpacker going through there bumming. And I was like, no, I literally got scammed, and I explained my case and stuff like that. And, well, during this whole transition, these 3 Irish girls walked by, and they were there because this was back in the day when Levi's Jeans was going to get their manufacturer plant there. And so they were part of that corporation. They walked by the door, and then came back and came in, and they were like, hey, are you in trouble? Do you need any help? And I was like, yeah, I mean, somebody ran up $500 of room charges, and I can't pay it. I'm broke. And so they said that they would pay it for me. And so they paid. Yeah, they just out of nowhere, they paid this bill for me, and then we exchanged information, and I promised them the Western Union the money to them, and hell, they didn't know, but it kept me out of jail. And then I had made friends when I first got there. I was going to this coffee shop, and there was a Vietnamese woman who was married to an American service member that worked at the embassy. And so I went back to the coffee shop, and I, just got to talking with her, and I was like, yeah, I'm in trouble. I'm broke, and I'm supposed to fly out tonight. I can't even get to the airport. And she gave me a $20 bill. And she said, you guys have, the Americans have given me so much. I'll help you, and I'll get you out of here. And I remember thinking, I was like, I'm in Ho Chi Minh City begging for money to get home.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was able to get to the airport, and oh man, I thought I was getting locked up, because it was, yeah, that was it. But yeah, Vietnam, then I've been to Thailand. I don't even know how many times, playing rugby there and whatnot. And from Thailand, jumping to Laos and Cambodia and China, just just stuff like that, just trying to, fill these pages in my book. And it's kind of like, I don't know, kind of Forrest Gump in it, but yeah. It was,
it's really cool. The way you even just described it, and in the book, it's almost like you're prepping yourself for Robin Sage. I feel like I got to make it through this crazy scenario. I'm dealing with the locals. I got to get help from somebody. I don't know them at all. I got to win them over. You just seem to meet people by chance on these trips. You hang out with them for weeks. It's really cool how it moves, and then kind of leads us in, I think, to your time in SF.
Yeah. So, I mean, so we, I traveled around the world, and, I've done deployments with the Navy and the Air Force, but, and I tried out for BUDS, didn't make it, and, all this other stuff, but there was still something, like I have yet to prove myself. I don't know what I need to do, but I've yet to prove myself. And, because the military is what I'm a part of right now, me proving myself would be a special operations type of job. And that's just me personally. And so, I blue to green, Air Force to Army, and I get the 18 X-ray contract. And so I go through infantry basic, and which was awesome, had a blast. Go to jump school, which I hated every minute of it. And I absolutely think jumping out of planes is absolutely stupid because I do not like heights at all. But I had to be airborne certified. So, and then I went to, Bragg to do the 18 X-ray indoctrination course, which was extremely hard, very, very physical, but it's an awesome prep for selection. And then I went on to selection, and basically selection was such a great just confidence booster because I still had that looming failure of BUDS in my head. But in selection, as I progressed further and further and further, and I would see, like, as the herd started to thin out, and I'm still here. And it was just like, it was just this great confidence booster for me that, wow. And then in the end, when all the dust settles and we get back from our 34 mile trek, I get selected, which, it doesn't mean you're a Green Beret. You still have the whole Q course to get through, which chews up a lot of guys. But I had made it, I had done something that I've never done before. And so now all of a sudden I'm starting to get, some confidence to me, as far as like, wow, like I'm starting to pick up W's instead of, L's. And all right, let's keep this rolling. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's pretty much what got me selected up to that point. So
yeah, you come out of that, you're assigned to 7th Group, right? Spanish kind of.
Well, I had to go through the whole Q course.
Yeah. Sorry. So after the Q course, you make it through that. And a lot of the guys you're there with, you describe selection and Q course in the book, at least, are guys you end up serving with later, which is pretty cool how you end up finding your way back with some of them. As you come out of the Q course, then you're assigned to, I think it's 7th Group. Is that right?
Yeah. Yep. 7th Group.
And as an 18 Charlie, right? So I interviewed Kevin Fleich, who mentioned you, obviously spoke about you very highly. He was also an 18 Charlie, but I didn't take the time to ask him, like, all right, what does that mean? Like, what are you trained on for that? And you describe it in the book really well. Could you just give people an idea, like, here's what an 18 Charlie does?
So an 18 Charlie is the coolest, most worst job you'll ever have. And what I mean by that is this. So the admin require just being an 18 Charlie and accountability and doing all this paperwork because you're accountable for millions of dollars of equipment. Because for people listening, you don't just get, guns and nods and vehicles and all this cool stuff assigned to your team, and then that's it. No, there's accountability, there's maintenance, there's inventories. Oh,
So
inventories.
painful.
So painful. Tons of that. Well, that's what an 18 Charlie does. And so stateside, I'm sitting there, I'm like, man, this is horrible. Like, where's all this cool stuff? Because in the Q course, we're blowing things up and building and all this other stuff. And so, but that was the other part is, when you go to South and Central America, you get to do some demolitions. It's pretty cool. But you get to also do infrastructure and help them build this or whatnot. Once you deploy to Afghanistan and Iraq, that's when 18 Charlie becomes the best job in the world. It's dangerous, but so now you're the counter IED guy. And so on patrols, I would be, up in the front with, myself. I got a mine detector and probably an Afghan or two up there with me with their mine detectors. And we're clearing the route for our ODA behind us. And if you find IEDs, you either mark and bypass them or you just dispose of them right there, because I'm not EOD. I don't pull anything out of the ground and trying to negotiate it, which is, they're experts at that. I'm not. I can indicate an IED. I can uncover portion to make sure it is. And like, yep, there's the pressure plate. Yep, there's yellow tape right there. Yeah, got it. Half block C4 and boom, and keep moving on. Or blowing stuff up in caches, or blowing stuff up just to blow stuff up because you can blow stuff up, stuff like that. Being deployed, if you like explosives, is amazing. It's so cool. But yeah, it's that 18 Charlie, you are a demolition expert. And but I think 18 Charlie is basically the example of jack of all trades, because demolitions, unfortunately, is a very small part of your job when it comes to inventories or now you're the 18 Charlie, so you're the camp mayor, so you're running all the different local national workers and everything like that. I loved it, but yeah, you're not 365 every day blowing stuff up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's then jump to, as you are meeting your team for the first time, right? I feel like you can't catch a break, man, from growing up and the way you described dealing with other kids. And then hell, you're finally a Green Beret. You've made it. You're assigned down to a team. All's well with this command sergeant major who you meet, who's another Oregon guy. But then you're knocking on the door for the team room. Talk us through that, and then let's get into some of the deployment.
Yeah. So coming into SF, like you graduate, you get your Green Beret, and you made it. You're on top of the world. Everything's easy after that, right? No. The hard work hasn't even started yet. And so I show up to the company, and I check in with the B team or personnel guys, whatever, up front, and it's like, this is who I am, whatnot. And yeah, I'm a Green Beret, and like, so I don't give a shit who you are, dude. Like, take your stuff down there. You're on this team. So, oh man, that's no way to talk to a Green Beret. Oh, okay. So, well, it'll be different on a team. They'll welcome me with open arms, and guys will, guys are going to be so happy I'm there. I'm one of them, right? Yeah, no problem. Knock on the door. Door opens up, and dude just wearing Ranger panties, freaking 3 inches from my face, in a very, very unnice manner. Who the fuck are you? And why are you knocking on my door? Okay. I'm Ryan. I'm assigned to the team. No, you're not. Stand outside. It's like, okay, but they just slam. All right. So I'll just stand outside. And I look down the hall, and there's new guys outside of every door. I'm like, okay, all right. I've been in for, 10 years at this point. I got a feeling I know what's going on. So then, they bring me in for, hey, new guy, what's your social? We got to fill out this paperwork. Great. Get back outside. Okay. So back outside the door, just, man, what is going on? Hey, new guy, get in here. Hey, what's this? Okay, great. No one cares. Get outside. Hey, new guy, get in here. Hey, where are you from? Nobody gives a shit. Get back outside. Like, God, what is going on? So it's like 4 days, 5, I don't know. But finally, I get into the team room. All right, I'm on this team. Now it's time to, all right, got it. Funny joke, guys. Yeah, this, wow, you rascals, kind of things. No, not even close. Now it's even worse because the door's closed. So you're just like, holy crap, man. Like you realize I've been in for 10 years up to this point. Like, what is going on? And so it was just one thing after another. But I adapted to it. And I was the guy that was staying till 1, 2 in the morning, doing inventories, getting everything ready for deployment, and whatnot like that. And guys start to warm up to you a little bit. But the fact of the matter is when you are going to a company that just came back from Afghanistan, just, lost the dues they lost and everything that happened over there, and you're the new guy coming to the team, no one cares about you. No one gives two craps because of the fact that you have yet to do the most important thing in any special operations career field, and that is prove yourself in combat. And I was like, well, crap. This is going to be great because we're deploying in about 6 or 5 months at that point. And so, I didn't have to wait long, but that's just the nature of the beast. And that's where a lot of new guys now are going to have issues as these OEF and OIF guys, as we start to leave the military, it'll start to get easier. But as we are still on the teams and whatnot, and you get the random onesies and twosies in that will never go to Afghanistan, Iraq, because it's just not a thing.
It's over.
And you're looking at them and it's like, would you ever be able to drag me off a wall if I just got hit in Afghanistan mud hut compound or if I got my legs blown up, would you even know what to do? Or if I'm this or this, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, unfortunately, but there's been another period of time when this was really big, and this was in the 80s with the Vietnam vets. Yeah. And so it happens. It's I guess it's a normal thing, but sitting in the team room with new guys coming in, I would see a guy and like, there's no way you could carry a fully kitted up, 200-pound man any distance at all if he got his leg blown off or whatnot, and so you're starting to judge him by these standards that you picked up from combat, which whether it's fair or not, that's the way it is. Yeah. And so, in that team room, I was nobody because of the fact that I had yet to prove myself when bullets were flying. So, cool.
So you're still kind of warming up to the team. You're getting ready to deploy. Let's jump to that deployment where you go in. So if you could talk us through kind of what year we're at, where you're at in Afghanistan, as much as you can say, and then take us through the first time you're going outside the wire there and what it was like for you. I mean, you have 10 years in the military at that time.
Yeah.
You're now a Green Beret finally. Like, what are the emotions like for you, and what was that first mission like?
So, I'm starting to get established on a team, and we have a deployment coming up. I want to say it was like June 2010. We were leaving for Afghanistan, and my team, we were going to be out of Firebase Tice, which is in Uruzgan province, but we were going to be working in between Tice and Helmand, along the Helmand River in the Chutu Valley. And so that was our big VSO, Village Stability Operations. That was our big area right there. Our ops box. Back in the day, we had ops boxes, and you throw in a 5W and what. Anyways, so but that was our area. Was right there, and so I'm pumped because I'm a Green Beret and I'm going to war. I don't know what war quite means besides the Cole, but I'm going to war. And the only time I had ever been shot at before that was we were up shooting prairie dogs in Oregon, and there was this hill, and I was on the bottom side of the hill, and my dad was shooting prairie dogs on the opposite side, not knowing that I was on the bottom side of the hill. So I had these rounds going over me, and I was just laying flat in the dirt, which was great, which was really good practice for what was to come in Afghanistan. But I didn't. So I was excited, and it was like we so we take off and we get to, I think the first place we get to is Bagram, and I'm super, I'm just super excited. And man, I'm Green Beret. I'm in Afghanistan, and we're going to go out and do war stuff. And, I want to take pictures of everything because I'm just this new guy wanting to soak it all up. But you have to look the part. You got to look like, been there, done that. I'm the cool guy. I don't care about this. I don't care. I'm too cool to care. And so even though inside of me, I'm this kid at Disneyland, on the outside, I have to be cool. Like, yeah, this is just another day for me, even though it's not. It's my first time. And so we get to Bath and do that in process. And then we get to CAF. And from CAF, we're going to actually drive or tactical ground movement to our fire base. And so we're at CAF and we finish everything up, and then we drive from CAF to Aruzgan. And that's where I find out, that was my, it was uneventful. It was just a drive, but that was my first time outside of the wire. And then we get to our fire base and everything like that. And okay, hey, we have to do what we call the left seat, right seat ride, where the team takes us out and shows us our area and whatnot. And so, hey, I'm the new guy on the team. I'm driving one of the RG-33s. And so, hey, maybe it was like 3 days after we got in the country, we're going out to the Alamo, or it was the west bank of the Helmand River, and the compound we had there called it the Alamo, which was probably a horrible name for it. But the Alamo was surrounded so you had the Helmand River on one side, a little dirt road, Helmand River. On the other side, you had a horseshoe-shaped ridge line, which in Afghanistan, that's a really bad thing to have looming over your compound. But that's where it was at, because we had full visibility over the river, and we can interdict, weapon smuggling, Taliban operations, because they were going up and down the Helmand River to launch attacks in Kandahar. And so our job was to clear the Chutu Valley with commandos and other ODAs, but this was all months later. We were just there, basically a very long LPOP. And so I'm driving, and we get up to, there was this one point in our movement to the Alamo, to where all vehicles stop, make sure everybody's in order, ready to go, because the next 1,000 meters is all open ground, and all of the Taliban in the caves and on the ridgeline fire on you and just blast you to crap on your death run to the Alamo. So, all vehicles stop. Of course, I'm in lead vehicle, and team leader gets over the radio and is like, all right, all vehicles move. And so we take off. I press the gas pedal and start, this RG-33 moving forward, which is a very heavy vehicle. And all of a sudden, tink, 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 tink. And then my windshield splinters, and it's bulletproof, and then I take 2 more rounds, like flack, flack. And it's spider webs everywhere. It's holy crap. And the team leader, he's yelling like, go, man, go, go, go. And you got the Helmand River and a drop off on one side, and open ground, ridgeline, rocky area. You got this little road. Taliban gunners, they have dialed this in for years and years and years, probably even when the Russians were there. And they're just shredding our vehicles. And that became a normal run from the Alamo to the or from the last cover and concealed to the Alamo. That became kind of normal. And so, you can run it at night, and they wouldn't really want to mess around too much at night, because the tracer rounds, you can pinpoint where they're at with the tracer rounds. Or if it wouldn't be that bad if you had an A-10 up overhead and he was circling as you guys did your run. But yeah, it was almost every time we did that run, we would just get lit up. And so that was the first time. And yeah, I was in a bulletproof vehicle, but that was the first time, adrenaline is just pumping out of my veins, and window is just spider webbed. And it was just it was intense. And we get up to the Alamo and everyone jumps out, and the team leader that is there on the ground, he's like, hey man, we got guys up on the ridge line, we got guys down entrenched in the valley, and so we're running up the sandbag positions, and it's just like, and I got my M4 and I've trained a whole bunch with it, but now I'm actually gonna use this weapon to shoot at a bad guy. And I was like, this is awesome. And yeah, it's just safe to fire. And we saw muzzle flashes down in the ridge, or down in the valley in an orchard. And I mean, anyone who's been to Afghanistan knows you don't see, these full-fledged,
there's silhouette hanging out
around. You see muzzle flashes because they're not stupid. And so we just started engaging muzzle flashes, and then finally got some air on station, and A-10s came in and did their thing. And then Apaches came in and did their thing. And then F-15s came in, and that ended it. But that ended up being probably an every day to every other day thing. It was almost choreographed. It was like, all right, morning prayer is done with, rounds are incoming. Zip, 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 zip. The floor of the Alamo is just dust flying everywhere. You're firing back, air on station. They do their thing. Okay, it's lunchtime. Everyone stop. Okay, yep. Oh, lunch is over. Crack, 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 crack. Oh, it's getting dark. Okay, it's probably done for now. Okay, we're done. All right, tomorrow. Yep, breakfast is over. Prayer's done. Zip, zip. It was just weird. I was like, what kind of game are we playing here? And it's like, well, the one that if you catch one of those rounds, the deadly game. But it was strange. We fought all the time. So,
after that first run through the gauntlet, basically to the Alamo, you get up there, you're kind of getting the lay of the land, you're firing back, you got the airstrikes coming in. At the end of that day, like, what was going through your mind? Like, this is where I'm supposed to be. I made the right choices. Like, can't wait for this.
Yeah, I was hooked. Like, the adrenaline rush, like my hands were shaking really bad. And like some of the senior guys on the team were laughing about it because they went to Afghanistan, came home for 6 months, and we were going back. So to them, they were just there, and they were laughing about it. It's like, yeah, that's going to happen. That's your new guy, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, and I was just, it's like, man, that was an addicting rush. It was awesome. And that's actually a problem because people get addicted to those rushes. And then when they get back stateside, there usually some problems, ensue after that because they can't get their combat fix.
So many guys share the same, like they just refer to it as a drug, like this combat rush, you get the adrenaline.
Yeah.
If we then go to the fateful day where your life really changes, could you talk us through how long you've been in country then? And walk us through that op. I mean, it's a life-changing moment, no doubt. Love to hear about it.
Yeah, definitely. So we're there in the Chutu Valley, all in preparation. Like, we're doing PE, we're preparation of the environment. So we're there all for this main valley clearance that was going to happen once, all the X's and O's were marked and whatnot like that. So September rolls around. We've been in Afghanistan about 3.5 months. September rolls around, and it's, hey, this mission is going to kick off September 11th. It's like, okay, that's a great day to do it. Let's go get a little payback. So September 10th, or probably the 5th through the 10th, we're prepping for everything. We have to get ATVs across the river, which is no easy thing. So, we're prepping, Zodiacs with wooden ramps on it to get vehicles, just all kinds of stuff. Everything's ready to go. It's September 11th, kickoff. So we get everything, we move across the river. All forces are ready to go. We're at our last, again, covered, concealed. And so now it's like, hey, we're waiting for the green light from CAF. All right. It's September 12th, early morning, green light, go. And so we start moving into our first objective that we're going to clear, the first set of compounds. And in the center of the valley, the commandos had come in through the center, And then up north near Firebase Cobra, or maybe it was south, I don't know, but near Firebase Cobra, another ODA and their guys were pushing down. So we're actually kind of doing a horseshoe movement into the valley to send the Taliban fighters, which at that point in time, we'd heard from 1,500 to 2,000 in the valley in this like 10 click area, maybe. We're sending them up in the mountains, and then that'll make it easy targets for the A-10s and whatnot. So we get kickoff. I'm up in the front with my mine detector, and I got I had an Afghan up there with me, and we get to a certain point to where we were going to stop, and then the different teams, we had separated our ODA up into three or four different teams, and so my element, we were going to go into the first set of compounds and clear those compounds. There was another element that was going to go along the river where there was this World War I style trench that they would fight us from and clear the trenches. And then another element that would be even more north, clearing some of the quote unquote cave areas up there. So we break up into our different elements, and I start moving to my first point, which is about 25 meters from the first set of compounds. And it's still dark, but the sky is getting light. You know what I mean? I think it's like 3:30 in the morning, something like that. And the sky is starting to get light in the horizon. So I know it's like, well, we don't want to be caught out here. The Taliban know we're coming. They've seen us. They've seen the buildup. They're not stupid. So we don't want to be caught on open ground when the sun comes up, because that could be bad for us. So, we're about 15, 25 meters from the first set of compounds that we have to clear to actually have C2, position, and our guys that are in the trench have a place that they can come up to get cover, once the sun comes up and whatnot like that. And so I grab Nick, our interpreter, and it's like, all right, hey man, tell our Afghans, let's get ready to go. They're going to go and clear this first compound right here. So Nick relays it to him, and I'm like, yeah, doing Green Beret stuff. This is great. And I turn around and no one's moving. I was like, hey, Nick, tell them, let's go. So Nick says it again. Yeah, Green Beret stuff all over again. No one's moving. I was like, hey, man, what's the problem? And it's still noise and light discipline, so we're whispering and everything. I was like, hey, what is the problem? And he goes, they're not going to go. I said, well, why not? Well, because it's too dangerous. I was like, well, yeah, I got that. They have these things in their hands called guns, and also metal detector. Like, I understand that. They said, no, you guys have to go first. You're better trained and you have better equipment. And I was like, yes, if we were in Texas, I would completely agree with you. 100%. I would go first. But this is Afghanistan. So we need to get this going. And he said, they won't go. I was, what in the hell? So I turned around to tell my teammate that was with me, Lance, and I said, hey man, they're not going to budge. I don't know what's going on. And he grabs me and he said, go get Nick away from that compound right now. And I turned back around and I see Nick had moved his way down to the first compound, and he was at the breach point or the doorway trying to wave these guys down like, hey, look, I'm here. Let's go. And if you lose your interpreter, you lost the initiative. You can't communicate. And so Lance like, go get him away from that now. What is he doing? Get him back here now. And so I try and move the best I can where he walked, because I know the ground's not clear. And we've seen animals step on IEDs in these areas. But so I'm like, well, so I make it down to him, grab him by the back of his shirt, and I was whispering in his ear. I was like, hey, wrong move, dude. We got to back away now. And he's, no, we can clear this. We can do this. Come on. We go and they'll follow. I was like, no, this isn't the right time. We need to reorganize. So I grab him and I pull him back, and I was like, go back to Lance. And I said, now, so the picture is you have this open doorway or breach point, and you have about 15 meters between where we're actually hunkered down at. And So I know that I don't want to turn my back to the breach point or the unknown and walk backwards. So I pull security while Nick moves back to lens. So I pull security and I have my, I got my weapon system and I'm, just seeing what I can see inside the compound courtyard, because it's mud hut walled off and everything. And something catches my eye. And so as Nick is, he's about probably 10 feet away from me. And again, as I explain this has all happened a lot more rapidly in real life. So Nick is probably 5 feet away from me. And I step inside the breach point to kind of pie around the corner a little bit to see what is flickering. Curiosity killed the cat. And I stepped on a pressure plate in the breachway of the compound. Yeah.
And you said everything's happening really quickly. On top of that, and I don't think we did justice here, like you are also very deliberately moving because of the potential for IEDs. Like that's why you're up front to make sure that you're not hitting any of these and clearing the way for the commandos and everybody else to execute, right? So you're moving fast, but only as fast as you can go while clearing a safe route.
Yeah. 100%. And you can look back and armchair quarterback anything you've done in your life. If I was to go back in time, I would have cleared up to him and then stood away from the breach point and then backed away into the area that I had cleared. But I can't go back and change what I didn't do. I was, I didn't do that. I outran my headlights and I moved up to him, grabbed him, pulled him away. And then I allowed myself to get sucked into wanting to shoot somebody so badly that I was able to, curiosity, hey, is that glimmering? What is that over there? Let me see. Boom. So yeah, I can look back and armchair quarterback it all day long, but the decision that I made to do that, as wrong as it was in that point in time, the lessons that I've learned from it have saved a lot of with the guys that I've trained. Yeah. So, yeah.
All right. So you step on that. And I guess we should say for those who are like, oh, did you step on something that did not explode? No, you stepped on it and it exploded. Right. And I think, I don't know IEDs the way you do, but in the book, it describes there's like 3 packets and only one of the 3 goes off. Do I have that right?
Yeah. So what this was, it was a 24-pound IED, which is enough to take out a vehicle front end, like disable a vehicle, whatnot. What it would have done to me is I would probably have from my chest up still kind of intact. Everything else would have been disintegrated. But it was broken up into 3 different cells. So when I stepped on the IED, the first cell went off, which malfunctioned the other 2 cells, and we call it low order. And so it low order detonated the other 2 cells, but only 1 cell went off. And so they didn't have it packaged correctly. And so, it really 100% them not packaging it correctly saved my life. But what I stepped on was 8 pounds of, 25, 26 pound IED. And anyone listening to this that, knows about IEDs, they know that, there wouldn't have been much to put in a body bag. They wouldn't have needed a body bag, maybe a Ziploc bag. But yeah, that first cell went off and it was crazy because, I had an idea in my mind what explosions are. I've watched movies and it's like boom. And, a guy fires a 40 mic round and this entire city block explodes. And you're like, wow, those are I had what I thought an IED would be like. And yeah, I've been through, I've definitely explosive training with the Q course and everything like that. But what I didn't realize is how quiet it actually was. Now in the valley, everyone heard it. It was a loud explosion. But when I stepped on it, it just sounded like a pop. a pop in like a little, like someone popping a plastic bag with air in it. It was crazy, but I remember, it knocked me on my butt, and so I'm laying there, and I have my kit on, and I have my go bag on, and with demo in it, stuff like that. So I'm kind of up on my back, and I can't breathe because the dust and ammonia and everything. I'm like, oh, I can't breathe. I can't breathe. I don't know what happened. I don't know if they shot an RPG. I don't know if, I mean, I'm a new guy, so I don't know if Saddam just launched a ballistic missile at us. I have no idea what just happened, but there was a boom. I'm on the ground and I can't breathe. It didn't hurt at that point. And so I'm like, man, I got to get up. I got to get breath. And so I'm trying to stand up, but I can't. I keep falling over. And now I'm getting pissed because I don't understand, why can't I move? It doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt like you would think an IED would hurt, at this point. I can't move. I don't know why I can't move. And I can't hear anything. Everything's echoing. And I'm looking around, and it's just dust, and it's barely dusk outside. And so the sun hasn't came up yet, but the sky's all light and everything because it's on its way up, and I can't see. And I'm just, I'm trying to figure out what just happened. And then all of a sudden I start to hear these noises, like someone's yelling at me from miles away down a hallway. And, again, I'm like, gosh, I need to get some fresh air. Well, I can't move, and it starts to, the dust starts to dissipate a little bit. And so I'm trying to figure out what's going on. And I remember I was able to finally see a little bit, and I looked down, and my boot was at a 90-degree angle to my leg. And I was sitting there, and I remember, and again, this is all fast paced, but I remember thinking, I was like, did I take my boot off? Like, I don't remember. Why is my boot like this? Because your mind can't comprehend damage to your body like that. Like, there's nothing natural about that at all. And so your mind is trying to legitimize it from what as a person. Like, well, obviously, if my boot's at a 90-degree angle to my leg, I took the boot off. Well, now it's, I'm looking, and then I see these two pearly white objects sticking out of my pant legs. And I was like, huh. And it's extremely white. I've never seen anything this white before. And I'm looking at it, and I was like, I don't understand what that is. And so I reach up behind my knee, and I pull my leg up, and my boot flops over to the side of my leg, and my tib and my fib are sticking out. And then I realized what happened. And that's when the pain set in. And I was, holy cow. And as I'm hit. And now I'm starting to hear people, my team starting, yelling, Ryan, don't move. And, I yelled back, where do you think I'm going to go? Kind of thing. And I'm hit. And, and I'm just like, I don't know. I just a mess at this point. And I'm trying to get my tourniquet off, but my eyes have already done the damage. I saw what I wasn't supposed to see. So I'm trying to do self-aid because, people listening to this, they may wonder, why didn't your team sprint to you? Well, there's a problem. And we have self-aid buddy aid for a reason, because where there's one IED, there's 5 or 10 or 3. But the Taliban know that if they can get one guy to step on an IED, they place toe poppers around that. So the rescue guys coming in, if you outrun your headlights, you run off of sheer adrenaline, like, I got to save my buddy, then you're going to hit these secondary IEDs. And it was extremely successful because the Taliban know we value life. They value death. And if they can play off of our value of life, they're going to end up being able to get a lot more guys trying to save one. That's why we have self-aid. And so I'm sitting there, and I'm trying, he's yelling at me, put your tourniquet on. And I'm just like, I don't know how. I'm seeing things. It was a very helpless feeling. And I remember, I'm laying there in the dirt, and I remember looking back, and I can see him, and he's on the radio, and he's like, we need a medic, and everything like that. And he looks back at me and he said, Ryan, I can't get to you right now. Hold on, man. Stay awake. And I remember I was like, I'm going to die here today. And that was hard.
So people are going to hate me for this. I'm going to ask you to pause. This is going to be the end of part 1. So you're laying there by yourself. You've got basically, you're at least talking to another American. You're seeing your 2 bones sticking out of your leg, and your boot is 90 degrees to your leg.
Yeah.
And then the spoiler here is you're going to be back in Afghanistan fighting one day, despite what we just hear. So, and we will pick up there next time. And I will take the barrage of comments that come from this, but it'll be well worth it because there's a lot more to cover.
I mean,
so, Ryan, I appreciate this session, man.
Yeah, people can read up on it too if they want to get a sneak peek ahead. But
so I appreciate the time. We will circle back and hit part 2 of this, picking up right from where we left off, your recovery and back into combat. So thanks so much.
Awesome. Man. Yeah, I appreciate it. It's going to be great.
Thanks for listening to this combat story. We wanted to spend a little more time with Ryan because his story has so much to it. Don't worry, we've already recorded the second session and it'll be released in the coming weeks. Trust me, you will not be disappointed. Thanks for listening and stay safe. As we wrap up, I just wanted to say thank you to those in the combat story community who have taken a few minutes out of your busy lives to not just listen to these stories, but also leave positive and supportive comments on Apple and YouTube. Here are some of the comments that caught my eye this week. Our first comment comes from Dan Miller-Jones on Apple Podcast, where he says, "Thank you all for your service. I found this podcast a few weeks ago and I subscribed. I was looking up things about the military because I'll be shipping off to Marine boot camp next summer when I'm 18 to be in the infantry. And hopefully in a couple years I can do force recon. This podcast makes you feel like you're in the battlefield with them. I'd give it more than 5 stars if I could." Dan, best of luck to where you're going. Thanks for leaving this, and I'm so jealous about the adventures you have ahead of you. Our second comment comes from CenterMass762, which is a great name, on YouTube, and he says, "What a great podcast. One of my favorite interviews you've done. Tom Shea is a fantastic American and seems like a hell of a leader." It's absolutely right. For those who haven't heard Tom Shea's interview, he's a former Navy SEAL, led the Navy SEAL sniper course, and has a fantastic book. Towards the end, he talks about a sniper-on-sniper engagement in combat. It's a hell of a read. I'm surprised it's not a movie. Thanks for taking the time to leave these comments. Have a great rest of the week and stay safe.